නමය ගරු රවි කරුණානායක මහතා විදේශ කටයුතු අමාත්‍යතුමාගේ නැසීමට
I asked a question from the Honourable Foreign Minister.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, the first part of the question is whether I would inform this House when India officially gave up their claim on the Kachativu Islands. I would like to tell the Honourable Ravi Karunanayake that there was no question whatsoever of India giving up a claim to the Kachativu Islands because India did not assert sovereignty over the Kachativu Islands. So there was no giving up, there was no handing over. It is not a situation where India had sovereignty and India then decided to hand over sovereignty to Sri Lanka. It is not a situation like that at all. What really happened was that in 1974, there were negotiations on the historic waters in the Pork Bay and the Pork Straits. And Sri Lanka was able, Ceylon as the country was then called, was able to establish through historical evidence that we had consistently exercised sovereignty over the Kachativu Island. We made use of records which went back to 1665. To the time of the Dutch East India Company. The government of Ceylon made use of extensive records including maps, correspondence and legislative instruments which clearly indicated that since 1665 Ceylon exercised sovereignty over the Kachativu Islands. So that was the position which was clearly reflected in the agreement that was signed in 1974 between the governments of India and Ceylon. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like to tell my honourable friend, the Honourable Ravi Karunanayake, that this position is very clearly set out by my counterpart in the Government of India, Shri S.M. Krishna, the Minister of External Affairs of India, in a statement which he made to the Indian Parliament. A statement in the Lok Sabha, I quote, these are the words of the Indian External Affairs Minister, I wish to bring to the attention of the August House that our fishermen have access to visit the island for rest, for drying of nets, and for the annual St. Anthony's Festival, and that the rights do not cover fishing around Kachativu Island. We will also have to bear in mind the fact that as per the agreements we have concluded with Sri Lanka in 1974 and 1976, Kachativu Island lies on the Sri Lankan side of the maritime boundary. These agreements were laid before Parliament, that is the Indian Parliament. Therefore, as far as the government of India is concerned, the issue of maritime boundary between India and Sri Lanka and consequently that of sovereignty over Kachativu Island is a settled matter. It is a settled matter. As far as the government of India is concerned, there is no question about that at all. It is absolutely settled. So that is my answer to the first part of the question, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Then the Honourable Ravi Karunanayake asked me whether I will table the agreement signed by the governments of Sri Lanka and India on the rights of Kachativu Islands. I shall be happy to do so. The agreement in 1974 is initialed on behalf of Ceylon by the then Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Sirimavo Bandaranaike, and on behalf of the Government of India, it is signed by Srimati Indira Gandhi. The third part of the question, the Honourable Member asks whether I would state why various claims are made by Indian political personalities trying to revive the Indian claim on the Kachativu Islands. I regret, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that I cannot speculate on the motives of other persons, why they are making statements. As far as the government of India is concerned, and that is what matters, as far as the government of India is concerned, there is no dispute or controversy with regard to this matter at all. And in the words of the distinguished External Affairs Minister of India, it is a settled matter. Then the Honourable Member also asks me whether I have spoken with my Indian counterpart on this matter. I have not done so. I frequently talk to him on matters which are of concern to both our governments. There was, however, no need for me to discuss this matter with him at all, because there is no issue or problem with regard to sovereignty over the Kachativu Islands. The fourth part of the question, will I state whether the Sri Lankan government insists that India stands by the previous agreement of handing over Kachativu Islands to Sri Lanka. There is no previous agreement, Mr. Deputy Speaker. There is a current agreement. So the Honourable Ravi Karunayaka has misdirected himself, and this part of the question is based on an erroneous conception of the current situation. In those circumstances, the fifth part of the question does not arise. ගරු නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි මම කියන්න කැමති ඉන්දියාවයි ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ අතර තියෙන ඉතාමත් සුහද මිත්‍රශීලී සම්බන්ධතාවය. කොයි ප්‍රශ්නයක් ඇති වුණත් ඒ ප්‍රශ්න විසඳා ගැනීමට අපිට ශක්තියක් තියෙනවා. මෙතන කිසිම ප්‍රශ්නයක් නැහැ. ජාත්‍යන්තර සම්බන්ධතා පිළිබඳව අපේ අරමුණ වන්නේ තියෙන ප්‍රශ්න විසඳා ගැනීම මිස නැති ප්‍රශ්න ඇති කර ගැනීම නොවේ. එම නිසා මම කියන්න කැමති මේ පිළිබඳ කිසිම ගැටලුවක් ඉන්දියාවේ පැත්තෙනුත් නැහැ, අපේ පැත්තෙනුත් නැහැ. වෙනම කිසිම රටක් මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගැටලුවක් දකින්නේ නැහැ. මේ ගරු සභාවේ මම ඉදිරිපත් කරන පිළිතුර එයයි ගරු නියෝජ්‍ය කතානායකතුමනි.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker. Honourable Minister, my question was framed 11 months ago when the claim came from nobody else but the Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu, Mrs. Jayalalitha. She made the claim, and if you try to say that I'm trying to rake something which is non-existent, I guess that's a preposterous lie. I'm sure you yourself is convinced that my question was based only to protect the integrity and the territorial integrity of this country. I'm happy that the response that has come has only proven that it is totally in the hands of Sri Lanka. So on that particular basis, the question only needs to be answered through the parliament, which has been done now so coherently on Mrs. Jayalalitha, where she can back out of the claim rather than go forward on this issue. Now, if this is the case, and you maintain such good solidarity with India, please advise, in that case, why don't you pursue, when you were with us in the UMP government, Honourable Prime Minister then and the leader opposition now, we proposed a land bridge. Now that the Kachativu Island probably no more, there cannot be any problems in international maritime. Why don't you ensure that the land bridge between Sri Lanka and India is put to press, because certainly it will be useful in today's context for the trade that is expanding in this area.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, these matters are resolved on the basis of allocation of certain responsibilities to certain agencies of the state. It is very clear that a matter like this falls within the purview of the central government of India. It is the central government of India that can decide matters relating to sovereignty and questions involving relations with other countries. There can be no better evidence of the categorical stand by the government of India than the authoritative statement made by the External Affairs Minister of India on the floor of the Lok Sabha. That is final, that is conclusive. There is nothing more to be said about the matter. The land bridge is a totally different matter. Of course, we can discuss any issue with the government of India. The depth and the range of that relationship makes the resolution of any problem possible. And that is not related to the question which the honourable member has asked. He has asked about Kachativu. He has not asked about a land bridge. But that and any other matter can certainly be discussed in a very amicable manner between the governments of Sri Lanka and India.
My second question, Honourable Minister, is the question I propose is that you mentioned that you have an extremely healthy relationship with the External Minister, which we appreciate. I mean, with your experience, with your knowledge, you should be having that. But if that's the case, why don't you also pursue what you and I started, which are helping trade to expand between India and Sri Lanka, which is the SEPA, which is also, I mean, part of all this, because one of the few efficient ministers in that side, Rajendra Senaratne, Fisheries Minister, having problem with Kachativu Islands. 73 fishermen caught and having problems. If there is no problem, then why is that Tamil Nadu keeps mentioning this? So I guess today's answer will put to rest from a Sri Lankan perspective. But please pursue to ensure that no such bellyachings take place in the future.
Well, we would certainly appreciate suggestions of this sort, which are made in good faith by distinguished members of the opposition. As I said yesterday, foreign relations represent a field in which there must be a certain spirit of solidarity and working together between the government and the opposition, and it is in that spirit that I respond to the constructive suggestion that was made by the Honourable Ravi Karunayaka. I would like to say that the government of Sri Lanka is placing a very sharp emphasis on connectivity. And as far as the railroad systems are concerned, very considerable progress has been made. The government of India has been supportive, And I would also like to tell the Honorable Ravi Karunanayake about the Colombo Tuticorin, the ferry service, and also what is contemplated.
It's suspended, correct?
Sorry?
The ferry service is suspended.
Temporarily, but that was it. And Talemana Dhanuskodi. Talemana Dhanuskodi is also being considered. You're aware of the very large number of flights linking Colombo with Indian cities. So any other suggestion which would enhance connectivity between the two governments will be very seriously considered by us. In fact, the theme of the 17th SAARC, which was held in Abu City in the Maldives very recently, the theme was building bridges, connectivity. So that is an area in which we are very much interested, and we would consider seriously your suggestion and discuss matters with the Government of India.
The third question, Honourable Minister, I would like to ask you is that obviously India and Sri Lanka's sensitiveness spreads in its geographically located place, Sri Lanka. The Chinese invasion into the economic area has certainly perturbed, and statements have been made more serious than the Kachutiu statement, on the basis of the Indian ports that are proliferating by the day there, and also that the statement that had been made by no other person but from one of the senior ministers in Parliament, saying that a loan of Chinese is being converted to equity, and the Hambantota port may have equity participation of Chinese. Has the External Minister of India or anybody from India mentioned the futuristic problems that may arise owing to certain major countries coming towards this and take economic activities in an area which is very sensitive to them, which previous problems have been created? So let us try to ensure that such problem may not occur in the future. And how have you handled this situation vis-a-vis the problem that is faced before us?
Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is another attempt to create a problem that does not exist. We have extremely cordial relationships with India. We have equally cordial relationships with China. Both countries are very active and vigorous participants in the economic development of our country at this crucial time. They are both our tried and tested friends who have stood by this country through thick and thin. And we are proud of the quality and the depth of the relationship that this country enjoys today, both with India and with China. There is no tension. No minister of the Indian government has raised this matter with me. And I state again that this is not a helpful approach to these issues. It is, on the contrary, an attempt to create problems where none exist. Thank you, sir.
Question.
Such and such a question was arisen on behalf of Sri Lanka.